Class is now open. Look at this, an electrical duplex receptacle outlet. This is for beginners. Okay, that's why I titled it that way. If you don't know anything about replacing an electrical outlet, this video is for you. So stick around. I've got lots to teach you. Now I just happen to have an electrical duplex outlet just like this that I'm going to be replacing. And why am I going to be replacing it, you might ask? Well, it's right here in the hallway, and it's got this little thing on here. What do you suppose that is? If you have cats, and if they've been pissing on your carpet, or if you've just recently moved and they're not in a good environment that they're used to, they may start pissing on your carpet. Okay? That's why you want something like this. This is called Comfort Zone, and this is a value pack. It comes with the little outlet and these little containers. That's what this thing here is. Okay? We put one, our cat started pissing on this carpet, brand new carpet, and we thought, what are we going to do? We're going to have to get rid of the cat. What can we do? And so we put these in. We put one upstairs and we put one downstairs. We put one downstairs, way down in there, and it just shoots off a smell. You can't even really smell it. Humans can't smell it. Dogs can't smell it. It doesn't affect dogs. It just affects cats. And son of a gun, she has not pissed on this carpet that I know of since. Okay, but this electrical outlet is still working, so what gives? Why am I going to be replacing it with this one? Well, see this? I got like a paper napkin right under it. Now see, when you plug it in, see how this thing tilts? I think the reason why it's tilting like that is because this electrical outlet has been used. This condo is over 15 years old, and this one probably has been used by people to vacuum. If you've noticed, that's the only electrical outlet down low in this area to hook up a vacuum. Granted, there's an electrical outlet back there, but I'm not going to move that every time I need to plug in the vacuum. Okay, this is the plug that's nice for everybody to use for the last 15 years to plug in a vacuum. And after time, these little tines in here get kind of worn, and then it gets loose. Now see how this is like this? And if you leave these things like this, see how this is kind of going down at an angle? What happens is there's a wick in there. That little brown thing in there is a wick, and it soaks the liquid up into here. This heats it, and it sets on top of this top base, and then the aroma comes out into the air. Well, if you have it at a slight angle, you get some stuff up here. It has a tendency to have this liquid come down and collect on the bottom of this, and what do you suppose it does? It drips. And like this, you would never know it until it's probably too late, until it messes up your carpet, or if you have a lighter carpet, you're going to see a stain there. And so that's why I put this back in there like that, to keep that straight up and down. Well, I don't want to do that all the time, so that's why I thought I would replace that electrical outlet with this. These are stiffer, so when I plug this into here, the theory is, and what I'm hoping is that this thing is not going to sag. Now see, just recently I replaced another electrical outlet down here, and I've got that on my channel too, of course. I don't know what I've titled it. And I'm going to do another one up here, and I'm going to title it something different. Oh, here's a little culprit right here. The little pissing machine on the carpets, but now she doesn't really do that anymore. Yeah, that's a nice pit buzz. Oh, she likes it down here now. Now see, before I replace this one, look at it. This one drip, 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 drip. It's not dripping anymore, and I can feel underneath there. It's dry as bone. And that's what I'm going to do up here. Now, if you have an electrical outlet that's broken, or the the ground, where the ground plug gets plugged in, like right down here. Lots of times if this is cracked out, you should replace it. Or if your top piece is loose, or maybe your top piece is missing, you think, oh, I'll just leave it and I'll just plug it in down here. Well, that's an accident ready to happen. If you've got kids, if somebody pokes something in there, they could electrocute themselves or something. Or if you have a crack in here, if it's pushed in, whatever it is, you want to replace it, go down to the store. That's why I'm making this video. So before I replace this, I am going to show you a few things you may not know what's going on with an electrical outlet. If you've never installed an electrical outlet before, like I say, this is for beginners, so stick around. I got some interesting facts to tell you about this electrical outlet. That's funny. I'm just going to put it on this little cat stand right here, my little work bench, as it were. And we're going to take a few looks on here as to what's going on with this. Did you know you can get an electrical outlet like this at your local hardware store for about, this one was less than $1, 77 cents to be exact. You don't want to buy one in a cardboard box. Lots of times they'll have electrical outlets in a cardboard box like this. This happens to be a switch, but sometimes you'll find these in here, you know. But I usually like to get the ones that are loose in a tray, and they're the cheapest ones you can get. 77 cents for this. They work just as well as the $1.99 ones, or whatever. And this one happens to have the little round out faces like that. And then they also have rectangular ones. Have you seen the rectangular ones? If you've not seen the rectangular ones, I don't happen to have one here, but I have light switches here. See how it's rectangular? Well, they have electrical outlets like that, so then you would have to get a cover plate, you know, with the knockouts like this, okay? But it's always nice when you're replacing something, look at your existing electrical outlets, okay? See what kind they are. See, that's the one I'm going to replace. Now, see, that's the old school style is what I've got. That's what I call it, old school. And then it's got this cover plate with the two round knockouts. And you also look at all of your light switches and your electrical outlets, and hopefully they're all the same color. Now, these happen to be white. Now, in older houses, they're kind of ivory color. Okay, so you don't want to just run to the store and get an ivory one and put it down where a white one is. Or go to the store, yeah, I just need an electrical outlet, I don't know, I'll just pick one up, they're all the same. And you come back and it's an off-white one, it's the vanilla color, the off-white, and you put it in there and it doesn't match. I've seen that lots of times. Even sometimes they'll do that with GFI outlets. Let's take a look in here. Let's just see what they did. Oh, that's right. I've got the power. I've got the power turned off. Here's a GFI electrical outlet, and it happens to be white on white. Lots of times these are off-colored, and sometimes they'll put an off-colored one here with the white cover plate because they weren't paying attention when they went to the store. They didn't get the right color. Okay, so the first thing you want to know is get the right color. Okay, match your existing conditions. See, here's one here in the bedroom. Yep, sure enough, it's that same kind. You take a peruse, check around. Yep, sure enough, white on white. All the light switches are white on white. White light switches, white cover plates, not the off-white. Okay, so everything's going to match. That's one of the first things I do before I go down to the hardware store and pick something out. Now, here's something else you're going to want to, well, here's something interesting I find on these. When I take a look at this, they have two different kinds. They have a 15 amp electrical outlet, and they also have 20 amp. Well, what's the difference? You might say, well, 15 amp, lots of times they'll have 15 amp, and those are generally the ones that you install in a house, okay? Like all your electrical outlets in your bedroom will probably be this one, 15 amp, but you know, in the kitchen, they're probably 20 amp. They're probably 20 amp, and lots of times 20 amp electrical outlets might have a line right there, and that might distinguish it. But then also you can look up in here, and I see on this one it says 15A right there. That tells me this is a 15 amp one. Here's another little thing right there. See that? 15A. 125V means 125 volt. Okay, 125 volt, 15 amp. And so I know this is the one that I want. The funny thing is, when you go down to your electrical panel, let's just go down there. This is a training video, and I'm trying to teach you some different things having to do with electrical. So count yourself lucky. Lots of times, I don't know where you're going to find something like this on a YouTube channel. They'll probably just tell you how to install an electrical outlet, and they tell you how to take it apart, put it back together, and all that kind of stuff. I'm giving you the meat and the potatoes, so to speak, on a few things having to do with electrical. Okay, so here's my electrical sub panel, and I'm going to look at this, and you can read all the different things. And the funny thing is, on that electrical outlet up there, it didn't list. It's upstairs and stuff. I actually found it under living room. And see, look at this. See all of these? These are your breakers. And they all happen to say 20 on them, don't they? See there? They all say 20. That's kind of odd. But here's the thing. Lots of times you'll have in your sub panel, you'll have lots of them that'll say 15 amp, 15, and you'll have some that say 20. The 15s are usually for your bedroom electrical outlets and your bedroom light fixtures and all kinds of stuff like that. But this happens to be a condo, and they thought, forget it. Let's just run everything 20 amp. Okay? And that's something important to know. Why is that? Because for 20 amp, all of your electrical wiring inside the house is going to be 12 gauge wire. Okay, 12 gauge wire. That's the size of the copper. Okay, solid 12 gauge wiring. And 15 amp circuits are usually run by 14 gauge wire. Now what's the difference? Well, the 14 gauge wire is a little bit thinner, a little bit smaller than your 20. I just happen to have a couple little pieces of wire here, and I was going to show you some different things. Now, I think one of these is 12 gauge wire, and one's 15 or 14 gauge wire. Okay, and it kind of makes a difference. Okay, I'm gonna strip off some. Here's my little strippers, and here's something else you're going to need to know. If you use strippers, they got little numbers on the side. See there? There's a 10. 12, 14, 16, 18. And you go, for 12 gauge wire, I'm going to use the hole, that's the 12, and I know that's the second one. Okay, I'm just going to set it on there, twist, pull it off. Kaboom. Okay, now this one I think is 14, so I count up 3, that's 14's right there, see? Right there, so I can strip that wire right there. Okay, so I'm going to pull that off carefully. Now, can you see the difference? See how this one's thinner than that? See there? And I can usually tell, when you're running wire after a while, you can generally tell this one can bend a little bit easier. The 14 gauge wire as opposed to the 12 gauge wire is a little bit stiffer. When I first looked at the ends of these, I was trying to see, here's an end that hasn't been stripped. When you first look at it, it's kind of hard to tell if one's thicker than the other until you strip the wire. Sometimes if it's kind of pushed in there, you might think, oh, these are both the same, but they're not. And that's a very important aspect to know, because when you're getting ready to install an electrical outlet, okay, this is a 15 amp, right? This is 15 amp. There's 3 different ways to install a wire on a 15 amp electrical outlet. Okay, let's just show you a couple of them. Here's one way, is on the back. See those little holes? You would poke the wire into the back. Okay, you'd poke it into the back. Another way you could do it is loosen up this side screw and put it on the side like that. Okay, and clamp the screw down. I've seen electricians do that. Some electrical outlets are set up that way. I don't like doing it that way because it has a tendency of possibly sliding out. There's a little concave area right there where you put your wire in there and let it set on there and clamp that down. If you're not paying attention, maybe you don't clamp it down properly, and when you push this into the wall, maybe this wire pops out or whatever. What I like to do, the third way is to wrap it around this, okay? Which would mean that you would take this and you would, I usually make about 1 inch long, okay, on the side. And I dropped a piece on the carpet. I'll have to find it later. And then you would take one of these holes here and put it on your wire, you know, let it stick out a little bit. I usually let it stick out about 1/8 of an inch, 3/16, and then I would turn the wire up and pull out. And you'd have yourself a nice little loop like that. Okay? Then when you put it on, you want the loop going the same direction as you're tightening this screw. So this would fit on there like that. See? And then you would tighten that down. But see, I would strip this a little bit longer. This wasn't 1 inch long. I would want to strip it about 1 inch long. Okay? So that at the end, well, let's just leave it the way it was. Okay, and I'll show you what happens if you don't have that long enough. After you get it attached on here, there we go. Okay, usually I like to have that end sticking out further. Then I can take my strippers and clamp down on it to get it so it's never going to fall off of that screw, and then I tighten up the screw. Okay, I don't want to just leave it like that without doing that. It's just one last little guarantee when you kind of tighten that and pinch it together on beyond the screw, to where the screw, once you tighten up the screw, you know that's never going to fall off. Okay, so bear with me now. Okay. So I'm gonna just cut this off, and I'm gonna show you some other things. Now, I was telling you there's a difference on 15 amp and 20 amp. Generally, if you're gonna see 20 amp circuit breakers, you know that the electrician has run. Do you think he's run any 15 or 14 gauge wire in the condo? No, he's not gonna run any of this wire at all, because 14 gauge wire is for 15 amp circuits. It's a smaller gauge wire. This is the 20 amp wire, which is the 12 gauge wire. So everywhere in the condo is running 12 gauge. So I know when I pull that electrical outlet apart, I have a good feeling that this wire is going to be wrapped around the side screw, or it's going to be attached on the side like that. It's not going to be in the back. Now, years ago, why do I know that? Well, years ago, they had this little hole a little bit bigger than that, so that you can run either 12 gauge wire in there or 14 gauge. Now, today's ones, they have this little bit smaller. Here's the 14 gauge wire. I'm having a hard time pushing it in that hole. Maybe if I push and push and push, it might go, but it's not designed to go in here. They did something smart. They thought, hey, we'll fix you. We don't want 14 gauge or 12 gauge wire run into a 15 amp electrical outlet. Okay, that's why. Let me just Here, I'll cut this back off. And I know it's the third one now. And if you ever have a question, you look on there, 10, 12, 14. It's the third one for the 14 gauge wire. 12 gauge wire, it's the second one. Okay? Now, the smaller wire slips right in there. Look at that. It slips right in, see? Now, and I can push it straight in. Uh-oh, I can't, look at that. I don't want it in there. But they do something really good there. They give you an option to get it, to take it out. You take a little screwdriver like this. If you want to pull these out, so let's say you made a mistake, or let's say you're going to replace an electrical outlet and you got 15 amp breakers, and you know the wire is 14 gauge wire, and so when you pull this out of the wall, you've got all these wires on the back. I used to just cut them off and then restrip them again, you know. But if your wire's not sticking out of the wall very far, the more you cut it, the shorter you get. So there's a little slot right there, just for a small screwdriver. See, it's a slot right below the top holes and right above the bottom holes. See there? You would push on that and then pull on the black. See there? I pushed right in there, and it's like a spring-loaded deal. Okay? Okay? I can do it wherever it is. As long as I pushing on there, get it in there, and this pulls right out. Okay? And you can see there's all kinds of interesting things on an electrical outlet that you might not have known. That's one. And then you might think, well, which side do I put the black wires? Which side do I put the white wires? Well, the white wires always go on the side. See this? Have you ever noticed the left-hand slot is longer than the right-hand slot? Left-hand slot is for the white wires. The other reason I know that, you turn it on the side. See these? These are silver screws. Silver screws are for the white wires. Gold screws, see on this side, they're gold. That's for the black wires. And then there's an interesting little thing on the back. If you wanted to really look at it, there's more wording up in there, and it says hot. Push to hot, and that's meaning you can push on those to get the wire out. And hot means black. The black wire is always the hot wires. Okay? That's for that side. That's for these. This is black. And it doesn't, you know, when you connect one, this side little clip right here connects both of these. So if you only have one black wire hooked up to here, the power is actually going to both sides, because this little thing right here makes it like that. Just this little tab connects this screw to that screw. So does it matter, hey, which side do I put which black wire do I put on top, bottom? Well, it doesn't really matter for that particular thing. And on the other side, you got the same thing. This thing is connected together with these two side screws, and that the green screw is always for the ground. Okay, and let's look at some other stuff. Well, that it said hot, so I know this is the hot side. This other side, I look, and it says white. Okay, and on lots of electrical outlets now, it even tells you right here, for installation instructions, go to leviton.com//instructions. Well, if you want more information about an electrical outlet, you can do that. Okay, what else is on here? There's even a gauge, a wire stripping gauge. You might think, how far do I strip this? Like if I'm going to push it in the back, okay, with the let's get the thinner wire out here. Let's say we're using let's say we're going to put this on a 15 amp circuit. We're using the 14 gauge wire. Is this long enough, do you think, to put in there and to get in there far enough or not? Is there well, do you just guess or what? No. Right, look at that right there. It's kind of hard to see. You See it right there? It says, I got to look in the sun here. It says strip gauge. You see that right there? Strip gauge. Son of a gun. I can strip it. Now I can hold it up there like that. And is that long enough? No. I got to go another 1/8 of an inch. So I go another 1/8 of an inch and I can eyeball that. I'm going to strip that off carefully. And I'm going to look at that. And that's probably pretty close. If I wanted to check, I can hold it right in there. See that little notch right there? I can hold it there. And I can push it in there. That's pretty close. It's still just a hair short, isn't it? So I can strip it a little bit longer. And I don't have to do that for every wire. It's like if you forgot or something, you can do this on the very first one, let's say. Okay. I hold it up in there. That's really good, isn't it? See there? Okay, then I could take my tape measure and I can measure this. I think it's a little over 5/8 of an inch. You see there, it's a long 5/8 of an inch. Right there. And I could have also measured this with my tape measure and measure from there over. And it looks like just a little bit over 5/8 of an inch. Okay, then after I strip my first ones, I can look at that, I can measure that with my tape measure, whatever. Okay, but now that's for 15 amp. And when I pull the old one out of the wall, I know it's going to have 12 gauge wire on there. So what I usually do is I'll strip this. Here's my 12 gauge wire. I just swapped it out. Okay, and I try to eyeball, and I try to make that about 1 inch. And I will look at that. Now see, I'm pretty close at 1 inch right there. Okay, that way when I get it through there, I'll stick it out maybe 1/8, 3/16, or maybe even a hair more than that, and then I'll turn it up. Okay, like that. So that once, and then you got to kind of slightly bend it, and see with the 12 gauge wire, sometimes you have to kind of irk it like that. And then sometimes you have to kind of put it on at an angle. And then after it goes on, then you slide it into place like that. Now see how that piece is sticking over? Then I would take this and hold it away from there so that I can grab that right there and kind of pinch that together. Then pull the slop out and then tighten the screw up. You see what I mean? I'm not going to do that right now, right? I'm just trying to show you. Okay, so all those different things come into play when you're installing an electrical outlet like this. Now here's one more thing to know about this. See those little grooves right there? See, there's a slight groove, indentation right there. Here's another one right there. You look on these tabs, one there, one there. Well, I can take those off. I can take a pair of pliers, I can take this and bend it back and forth and pull those off. The only reason why you're going to do that is if you put this in a cut-in box. Let's say that the box is on the outside of the sheetrock wall, then this rectangular bit fits inside that box, and you don't want these tabs, because if you have these little tabs here, that's going to be on the outside of the box, and that's going to let it stick out further. Your cover plate might not fit tight to your wall. Okay? And so then you would pop those off. If I broke those off, then I would save those and put in my nail bag, and I'd use those for little washers. I can use for shim washers for later on or whatever. And I've done that several times. Okay? So those are all the different things about this electrical outlet. Now at the store, You ever seen those little plastic things for kids? Those little guards that you plug in there? You got one for the top, one for the bottom, and it's kind of a pain to pull those off. And it's like to make your electrical outlet child-proof so that they don't stick anything in there and electrocute themselves. Well, they have some electrical outlets at the store that you can buy nowadays. They're about $3, $3 or $4, and there's a little plate that goes across there. So when you get ready to plug something in, that plate is on a spring-loaded deal, and it pops out so that you can plug something in there for your top. And here you would just see white because that plate would be on there across there, and that would make it child-proof. Okay, so but then you would have, you know, if you wanted that in all your bedrooms, all your lower electrical outlets, you'd have to replace all your electrical outlets in your house or whatever, if you wanted to make them child-proof that way. Or if you're doing a new house, you can get all child-proof electrical outlets, let's say. And I saw that the other time I was at the store, okay? Now here's another thing to realize, and I don't know why they do it, but see, as I told you, this is a 15 amp, and I know that because it says 15A there, it says 15A over there. They let you run electrical 15 amp electrical outlets on 20 amp circuits, because in this condo, all of the electrical outlets, the lower ones, are 15 amp electrical outlets. Okay, and they did that, and they're running them on the 20 amp circuits. I don't know why code lets you do that, why inspectors let you do that, because in the kitchen for 20 amp, you should have 20 amp electrical outlets connected onto a GFI breaker, like for your blender, your toaster, your a mixer, an automatic mixer, stuff like that you have on your counter in your kitchen, let's say. Or your bathrooms. Lots of times your bathrooms will be on 20 amp circuits, and then you're going to want 20 amp electrical outlets, 20 amp GFI outlets, and that kind of thing, because you're running motors and stuff. But lots of times on your different plugs inside your bedrooms and stuff, lots of times you're going to plug in a vacuum, or you may plug in a lamp, by your bed, or your charger for your phone, stuff like that. And so lots of times you're not going to overload a circuit. You don't want to overload a circuit with too much power on a 15 amp circuit, because then it could trip your breaker, or your breaker may not trip, and it may be your wire fries up in your wall, or something sparks right at your electrical outlet, or something like that. Okay, now let's just see if my hypothesis is right on that for these particular electrical outlets in this condo. I said they should be they're probably 15 amp, and I can probably see that right there, or right up there on the existing electrical plug, the one that I'm going to be replacing out here. Okay, let's just for ducks. I mean, I didn't install this stuff 20 years ago, 15 years ago in this condo. I'm making the assumption because lots of houses you have that, but because this is condo, they shouldn't really have that, and maybe the inspector caught it. I don't know. Let's just, I'm going to be curious to know. And I've already turned the power off to this here, and I'm gonna see if I can quickly see that. I put little foam deals in here for insulation. If you have exterior walls or even interior walls, a lot of times you put your hand up there. If you feel cold air coming through there, you can fix that by having these little foam pads that you can put in there. And I did that on all my electrical outlets and my light switches throughout the condo. There weren't that many. And I thought, I'm just going to do that just for the sake of argument. I'm going to get my electrical tester just to show you. that it's off. I've got the breaker off downstairs. I had to check 6 or 7 different breakers, and then I had to wiggle it in here and stuff. Okay. And I don't even have to take this out of the wall. I'm just gonna turn my my light on my cell phone. Okay. I'm gonna look on there, and it says 15A there, and it's hard to see that up there. Now see, this one happens to be written down at the bottom, and there's paint over it and all that kind of stuff, but I can't really see. I could scratch the paint off and see, but right there at the plastic it says 15A. All of the electrical outlets in this condo, as I thought, are 15 amp. And I don't know, I can't say all of them. Maybe the ones in the kitchen aren't. I don't know that for sure or not, unless I take a cover plate off in the kitchen just for kicks. Wouldn't that be something? I mean, eventually I probably should know this already, shouldn't I? I mean, I think you want to know this. Let's just go down there for kicks. I'm thinking they ran 20 amp electrical outlets here, and I'm not sure if they did or not. Now see, here's an electrical outlet here. Here's one here. This is a GFI, and that GFI. Here's another GFI here. Now see, this GFI probably controls those two electrical outlets. That GFI right there probably controls that one. And I don't know if I can quickly find out on a GFI if I can see on here without taking the cover off, or the maybe I'll take that off down there. Hey, since I've gone this far, this is part of your lesson. I'll be right back and we'll get it checked out. Okay, you're just gonna have to trust me on this. I'm shining this down here. I'm looking right down here, and it says 15A. 15A, and I also I didn't pull that one off. I pulled this one off over here. Okay, and that says 15A. Isn't that something? I mean, I would never really do that in a kitchen. These are on 20 amp circuit breakers. You saw that in the sub panel. They have 15 amp GFI outlets, and they also have 20 amp GFI outlets. There's a reason why. Because if you put the 15 amp in there and you overload the circuit, well, I guess their theory is here, hey, if you overload it beyond 15 amps, it's going to trip the 15 amp circuit before anything else, and then it's going to trip the other electrical outlets that are connected. But in my view, I would have ran 20 amp GFI electrical outlets, and then on these particular electrical duplex receptacles, I would have made sure that when I was at the store, I got 20 amp duplex receptacles and not the 15 amp. Okay, that is the rest of the story. If you have any questions about that, you can ask, you can Google it, you can ask somebody at the hardware store. Go to the electrical area and ask them, what are your thoughts? Or when the inspector comes out, ask him what he thinks. But I think the inspector kind of missed that. I would not do this in my judgment, and that's just my point of view. If you got any questions or comments you want to send me, please do so. You know, and in fact, I'm going to be installing a backsplash up here in the kitchen, and before I do that, next time I'm at the hardware store, I'm going to ask somebody there at the electrical department what they would do, what they would recommend in a kitchen area like this. And I'm thinking I'm highly likely going to hear him say, since you have a 20 amp circuit breaker and all of your wires in the kitchen are 12 gauge wires, go ahead and change out these 15 amp GFIs to 20 amp GFIs, and then take your duplex electrical receptacles that are attached to those GFIs, which are those two and this one over here, to go ahead and replace those with 20 amp duplex outlets. And I could do all that when I get ready to do the backsplash, because once I get ready to do the backsplash, because all the electrical is there, what I'm going to have to do is either I'm going to have to disconnect. If I was going to save all of these electrical outlets, I would pull them out and then pull them all the way out of the wall and then tip them up sideways or twist them sideways and push them back in the box, even with the wires still on there. I can leave the breakers off or whatever, and then I can put the tiles on, even with the electrical outlet still there. But in this case, if I were going to be removing all of these, I'd remove the wires, just let the wires stick out, put wire nuts on them, whatever. And then when I got ready to reinstall everything, I'd reinstall the 20 amp duplex receptacles and the 20 amp GFIs. Okay, that's what I would do there. All right, enough of that. Let's see if there's anything else to tell you about that electrical outlet I'm getting ready to install. Well, I think that's about all I have to tell you about an electrical outlet such as this. So for all of those reasons, and for the main reason that even though this electrical outlet is still working, because this is cocked at an angle, and because I don't want to have this paper towel, napkin, toilet paper, any of that pushed up behind it, I'm going to replace it. And you know, it's not going to take me very long to replace it. It cost me 77 cents plus tax, less than $1 to replace this electrical outlet. For all of those reasons, I'm going to replace it. And next time you go around, you're going to start looking around on your plugs, on your outlets at home. Okay, are any of them broken? Are any of the ground areas broken? If this little thing is snapped off, yeah, code says you're supposed to replace it. If this is cracked or something else, or your face is loose, anything like that, or one piece is all missing, you'll know. Hey, you'll know, trust me. If you got anything going on, it's way better. This is an insurance policy to replace this rather than to wait to have a fire or have somebody plug in a heater to it or a vacuum cleaner extension cord to it and then pull it out at an angle or something and have it spark or have it catch on fire as you're vacuuming somewhere, or in the middle of the night something happens because it was broken and somebody tried to poke something in there, or the little ground plug to your extension cord is wedged down in there, and now you can only plug in the top two and not the whole cord. Get a different cord now because one's stuck in there. For all those reasons, just go ahead and replace it. Okay, now you know all the different things to look at and to see what to do, what type of electrical outlet to get at the store, what color to get at the store, what size to get at the store, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, and that's all I have to say about that. That's all I got for this time. But I'll be back with more videos. And if you thought that I was going to tell you and show you how to remove a duplex electrical outlet on this video, I'm so sorry about that. But hopefully you got your classroom setting. You're a beginner. You didn't know that much. You know way more now than you did before. Just watch another one of my videos, how to remove an electrical outlet for dummies, or whatever it is. Go to my main YouTube channel page. If you can't find them on my channel and you want to look for it, go to my main YouTube channel page, click on playlists, and then scroll down to electrical. I got all kinds of topics on there for different things on how you can save money around the house, not just electrical, okay? But for this particular purpose, click playlists, scroll down to electrical, and then scroll down through theirs and see what you're looking for. How to replace an electrical outlet for dummies, or how to install a three-way light switch, how to remove a dimmer switch, how to install a dimmer switch, how to install a light fixture, how to install a ceiling fan, how to remove a ceiling fan. Anything having to do with electrical that I've made on my channel, I've put right there. So look for them on my channel. What is my video about today? Well, hey, I think you probably already know. Here, I got my electrical outlet here. I'm going to replace this duplex electrical outlet in the wall. I'm going to replace that defective one with this one. If you want to watch that, stick around and I'll show you how. Now, what's the deal, Joe? If you were watching another video of mine and you saw this, you know that this particular electrical outlet is in fact working, but it's not working like it should. I've got this little thing plugged in there, and it's for cats. If you have a cat pissing on your carpets at home, you might want to get some of this stuff that works really super good. You plug it in there, it shoots off an aroma. It doesn't shoot off, it just kind of weeps it into the room. You can't smell it, your dogs can't smell it. It's not going to affect your dogs. And if you have cats, it's going to affect them. It's going to calm them down a little bit, and it's going to prevent them from pissing and urinating on your carpets, on your electrical outlets, on your walls, on your baseboards, whatever. Okay? Try it. You might be pleasantly surprised. This is called Comfort Zone, and this was a value pack Mommy got, and it came with 6 of these little goodies, replacement cartridges, and it came with 3 tops. I don't throw these away every single time. I'll save them in case one goes bad. I always want to have a couple extras. This wasn't really going to be part of the video per se, but because I made another video on that. But since I'm right here, you see, here's one of those cartridges there. You unscrew that, and this is a wick, and then you would, here's your little deals. You would screw that on there, plug that into the wall. The aroma comes up on, but there's a table top that sits on there. See, here's a different one. The wick goes up through there, and there's a little platform up there. The wick goes up there, and then this top thing gets kind of moist, and then it's heated up with a little motor heater thing in there. And then it permeates throughout your room. It calms your cats down. Trust me, it works. And you see, this one here, I've got a little piece of napkin under there. See how it's kind of setting at an angle? It doesn't want to set in there straight. And I think it's because this electrical outlet is in the hallway. This condo is over 15 years old. See how this it just doesn't want to hold up there. And if you leave it like that and it's coming down at an angle, after you put it in, you feel under there 10 minutes later, this is going to be wet, and this is greasy, oily stuff. It's going to be wet, and what do you suppose happens? It drips down on top of your carpet. That's why this thing has to be straight like that. That's why I put that underneath it. See, but I don't want to leave it like that. It's not going to take me very long to replace this electrical outlet. This thing costs less than $1. I'm going to do it right. These prongs on here are going to be a lot stiffer because they're brand new. They're not going to be worn out from somebody plugging something in here 50 million times in the last 15 years. Because when they run a vacuum up here, where do you suppose they plug the vacuum in? It's real easy to plug it in here. There's no plugs down here low anywhere in here. There's one behind here. I'm not going to pull that out every single time. And in the bedroom, there's one over there. There's one over there. I'm not going to get over there. Here's one over here that I could use that one to plug in for my vacuum. But then my extension cord on the vacuum is not very long. I like to plug in here. Everybody else liked to plug in here before we moved in here too. That's why those prongs are really super loose. So even if you have an electrical outlet that's still working, if those prongs are loose, why don't you go ahead and just replace it? It doesn't take you very long. Maybe you only got 2 or 3 of those in your house. different areas where you know every time you plug something in there, your vacuum, it always wants to kind of come out. It doesn't poke in there very well, and you have a hard time plugging your extension cord in there. Go ahead and replace your electrical outlet, even if it's not broken. But if you have a broken electrical outlet with this, where this ground prong goes in there, if that breaks, did you know this is a failed and a defective outlet? No inspector is going to say, oh yeah, that's still good, you shouldn't have to replace it. If an inspector came to your house to sell your house before you buy your house, you'll have a homeowner's inspection. The guy is supposed to check all that kind of stuff. If you're doing a remodeling job, your inspector comes, if he sees one of those broken, guess what? He's going to make you replace it, even if it's still working. But if your face is cracked, or if you're having a hard time with one side not working, you know you always have to plug in here because this side's not working, it's defective. Go ahead and replace it. Okay, that's what this video is about. Okay, so I am ready to replace this now, and the first thing I'm going to do is take my little electrical tester. I'm going to plug it in there. I've already turned this one off. I found the electrical breaker down in the garage, and then I tested this. Lots of times you have to kind of move this around back and forth. Make sure your tester's good first before you plug it into something, in case your light's not working or something like that. Make sure your tester's good so that you don't turn your breakers, and you turn one breaker off and you check this, okay, yeah, it's off, and then you start working on it and you shock yourself, you mess up your tools, you scare yourself out silly when this thing pops on you and fries you. Okay, so that's the first thing you want to do. I never want to encourage anybody to work on something with power there. Okay, that's the first thing you want to do. It's find the right breaker, back and forth you go, test it out, and then you want to remove this. Okay, and the thing with this is this is an old school type of electrical outlet, and I always like to check that out first before I go to the store to get a new one, to see first off if it's like this or if it's the rectangular kind. The rectangular kind costs a little bit more. They're probably $3 instead of $1. Okay, and they're two different colors. Did you know that? You have an ivory color, which is kind of an off-white, which almost is kind of a light yellowish. Well, that's the old kind. Years ago, they only had one color. That was the color. Then they started going with white ones too. But then if you're working in an old place, this condo's 15 years old. If these were off-white, I would have made note of that and then got an off-white electrical outlet to replace it with. Okay, so I always like to check that out and before. And so now let's see if you can see everything. Yeah, you can see all that. Yeah. Okay, now I'm just gonna before I take that out, what else can I do this? I could mark this with a felt tip pin if I wanted, or something like that, in case you've painted and you want this exactly where you want it. I'm just going to put a little mark above the screw behind the cover plate, obviously, and I'm going to try to center that like that, just to give me a reference point, so when I get ready to reinstall it, I'll know pretty much where to go. I mean, granted, you don't necessarily have to do that. Okay, and now I'm going to unscrew this, and because if you haven't painted, see, before we moved into this condo, I repainted everything. So I took the cover plates off, I painted everything. But if you haven't painted, your cover plate may have to go in an exact spot. This might have to be adjusted to where you have to, you're going to want it in the same spot so that when you put your cover plate on there, it covers everything, right? Okay. And this mounting screw kind of came off. There's a little paper washer there that kind of holds the screw on there. I'm just going to kind of leave that off to the side right now. I'm going to pull this out, and I'm just going to go like that. Now, if you want, you could test this again if you're thinking, I wasn't sure. I'm putting it on the gold screw, putting it on the silver screw, and it's off, okay? And that's all you get. That's all you're going to do just yet. Okay, that's it. Just pull it out that far. I want to make this as simple as possible. Even if you've never done electrical before, I want you to know you can do it. You can do it on your own. If I can do it, an average Joe, you can do it. Okay, so on to the next step we go. Now let's take a look at this. Before I start willy-nilly starting to undo the screws, wires, and the screws and stuff, I want to first see how this is installed, because some are installed differently than others. And this one, I see that the black wires are looped around the screws. Those two black wires on those, and the white wires over here are looped around on the screws. And there's the ground wire looped around on a screw too, see? Now, there's 3 ways somebody might have installed this and mounted that. They wrap it around the screws in the same direction where you're going to tighten the screws, or maybe they don't have a loop on the wire, and it's just runs straight from here over, and then you tighten the screw down on that. I've seen some guys do that. Others use these holes in the back, and see, not the rectangular hole slot, but the round hole. And here's something to remember. Most of these electrical outlets on your walls like this in your bedrooms and stuff like that are 15 amp. And you would look on here and you would see a 15A. I don't know if you can see that or not right there. And there's also another place up here. It says 15A. Okay, and I looked and I saw that was a 15 amp too. And the funny thing on all of these, they were run with 20 amp circuits. 20 amp circuit breakers instead of 15 amp circuit breakers. Lots of times in your electrical outlet, your junction sub panel, you might see 15 amp breakers, 20 amp breakers. Find out which breaker this is on. If it's on a 15 amp breaker, that means you got 14 gauge wire onto here. And the 14 gauge wire can hook in on the back side. You can just poke it in. Okay, strip the wire back about 5/8 of an inch, a little bit more than that, poke it in the back. And on here, if these were poked in the back, I'd be able to take them out. I wouldn't cut the wires and restrip it and all that. I would just flip this sideways and take a little slotted screwdriver, you know, one really small like this one, and then I would put that in there and take it off, see? And you see here, I would take my screwdriver and push it right in there, and there's a little spring goodie there. As you're pushing in, you got to pull the wire out. It's kind of tricky to do, but you get used to it after a while. And then I could just use zip, boop, 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 and then I could take the other one, boop, 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 put it all back in. See? And I've got to look at that, and I'm just going to do the wires like for like, exactly how it is. And I always know that the black wires should always be on this side, which they are. If you notice, this side, the slots are shorter than this side. The shorter slot side is for the black hot wires, the black wires, or the, you know, and so you would flip this around and you would use this hole and that hole, okay? Not those two holes, because those two holes are for your white over here. The gold screws are for black wires. This is for black wires. Little slot for black wires. This is the white wire, the neutral side. Silver screws are for the white wires. You put the white wires in the back. If this was 15 gauge wire, this is 20 gauge wire, or 14 gauge wire. For 14 gauge wire for 15 amp breakers. But these are all in 20 amp breakers. So that's why they ran this. That's why they ran these wires on the side screws, because this is 12 gauge wire, and the 12 gauge wire nowadays will not fit in this little hole because this is a 15 amp plug, duplex. And years ago, they used to have these holes bigger. You could put 12 gauge wire, 14 gauge wire in there. It didn't make any difference. Then years later, they thought, hey, we're not going to do that anymore. We only want, if you're going to use those holes, it's going to be for 14 gauge wire. But here, they ran 12 gauge wire, okay? So the 12 gauge wire has to go on the screw, okay? And that's why they've got it on the side screws, okay? And so I'm gonna do like for like. I don't really care how they wired this up. I don't care about anything because however the wires are, like this one here, I know if I look in there, I can see there's two sets of wires. There's two copper wires back in the box. There's two white wires, two black wires. Then they connected the two copper wires together, shoved that back in the box. You only got one copper wire coming, and it's attached to this electrical outlet on the green screw there, okay? And then the white wires, they got one on each screw, and the black wires, they got one on each screw. It doesn't matter on this particular one which black wire goes for what. But when we take this off, if you don't know any better, we'll do the top. We'll do the top to the top. The top black wire, we'll leave it on the top, okay? And vice versa. You know, there's reasons to maybe do it slightly different, but not for this particular electrical outlet, okay? Now, I'm gonna just start right now, and I'm right-handed, okay? And so I'm gonna do everything on the left first. I'm not gonna use my left hand or anything like that. I'm just gonna flip this over sideways like that so that I can get to this with I can hold everything with my left hand, and I can still use my right hand over here, okay? Does that make sense? So I'm gonna start undoing these wires over here, and I'm gonna get this ground. Lots of times these screws could be tight, and you just have to hold your mouth just right and get that unscrewed, okay? Be careful with that. You want to get your screwdriver off and shove it right into your palm of your hand. I've done that before. It's not very nice. Years ago when I was first starting, okay? Now, I'm just going to undo all these screws, the green screw and the two silver screws. Oh man, they got these on good. And the reason, you know, that it's over 15 years old. Now there's a back, as you're backing the screw out, you can tell where to stop. But I might end up undoing these screws all the way. We're just going to see, okay? If you do them hard enough, those screws will come out. And I don't care about the black screws right now. I don't care about that, okay? I'm looking at this side only, and sometimes I can just get these wires right off of there, and I don't have to undo the screw, okay? And you know, if I took my little screwdriver, I could take it like that and prop that off, pop it off, or whatever. Okay. Sometimes they might have this crimped over and kind of tightened, so you can't even take this off by hand like that. And if you don't want to mess with taking the wire, trying to pull it off, taking your wire strippers and trying to change everything, you could just take these screws right off. Okay? And that's what I'm going to do here. I've done this on a couple other ones where I thought I'm just going to undo the screws. Okay? You can do that. Ugh, I almost thought I got shocked, but it was just because I was pushing so hard. Come on. Boy. Okay. Okay, you're in luck. That one's not wanting to come. Well, maybe I can get a different screwdriver. These screws have an area for Phillips or slotted. I'm going to take my slotted screwdriver. Maybe I can kind of bear down on it and get that screw off of there. Here. Boy. See, the screw will come out. It's just harder to do that. Okay? Or you can pull it off the other way. Okay? See how those are, I've already got those off. I'm not going to worry about anything else just yet, other than I want to get this copper line off, and this screw's kind of hard to come off too. Okay, it's not gonna come. I can take my little screwdriver, and I could have done this with the others too, and wedge it in there. Okay. Or see if it's crimped on the back, and if it is just slightly, I can slightly separate it with the bigger screwdriver. Let's see if I can get it. See, it's not very deep. You can twist it and separate it a little bit. Take your small screwdriver and you can pull that off of there. See how it's got a loop? I can make that loop a little bit smaller or bigger by just doing that, okay? All right. That's all I'm going to do for right now, okay? Don't even worry about that. Okay? Top, bottom, ground. So what am I going to do here? I can do two ways. I took this one off because I pulled that off. So now I can put that one back on. I could take these two screws off all the way and then hold them up there, line it up. It's kind of tricky to do, but it's easy. You know, you do it once or twice. At this point, if you want, you can take this and just pull out and make this just a little bit bigger so I can get it on the side. Okay? And because I'm going to leave these screws on this time. We'll take the other side screws off, okay? This is this side. I'm just undoing these screws, backing them off a little bit. Okay, until it feels tight, to give myself a little bit of extra room. I want to put it on like for like, okay? And so I'm going to start down here, and I might have to bend that just a little to get it on. And you want it going the same direction as you're going to tighten everything up. Okay, now I can kind of crimp that together a little bit and tighten that screw up. Okay. You want your copper wire going the same direction over your screw as the screw is tightening. That makes sense? Okay. Now I'm going to see, these white wires are, because they've already been installed, I'm going to have to kind of bend them a little bit just to get it over here, because I didn't take these side screws off. And you can do it. You just have to kind of look at it and see. I would actually do this slightly a little bit different. I would actually put this down this way and tilt this and get it on. See, I'm even struggling with this a little bit because of how it was on there from before and how all the wires are. But see, once I get it on there, then I can take this and pinch that together just a little before I tighten up this side. Okay. Yeah, you can see me. Hello there. If you don't want to do that, you just take these screws out and take the screw out and just hold it up there. You see? Then everything's all bent and everything's all lined up for your next bit. But see, because I'm doing it this way, I've got to reposition things. I'm not going to do that on the black wires, okay? Like I said, I'll show you a different way to do the blacks. I think you can see that. Okay. Make sure those screws are tight. Make sure your ground screw's tight. Lots of times when you twist it back up, you know, like that, sometimes that ground screw gets loose, I've noticed, every once in a while. Okay, so now, that's what you're going to have so far. Okay, now like I said, we're going to do this side slightly different this time, okay? I'm going to push this out of the way, and we're going to go for this. I'm just going to undo this side all the way, and we're going to do that next. Okay, how these are looped over around the screws, and so now I've got it. Oh, it's hard to see where I've got that. Let's put that over kind of like that. I think you can see that better, can't you? All right. Okay. First, just going to loosen those up like that, and now I'm just going to keep unscrewing these screws and take them all the way out. Just take both of them out, okay? Just wrench on them. I can do that a little easier because I'm right-handed. See how those two came off pretty easy. I know that's the top, that's the bottom, okay? Does it really matter? No, not really. It doesn't really matter which one goes to where because this is a general standard electrical outlet. It would matter if it was underneath a kitchen sink and half of this plug was for your wall switch for your garbage disposal and half of it was for your dishwasher, because your dishwasher would always have power to it and your top would only be controlled by your switch on and off. At that point, if you're going to be replacing something, you would take this little side, this metal right there. You would take that with needle nose, bend that back and forth, because it's just a little thing right there connecting this bottom screw to the top screw. See, you break that off, and now you can have power just to the bottom, and you can have the top controlled by a switch, or the top just with power, and the bottom controlled by a switch, however you do your wiring. But for this, bet you didn't even know that. But for this, it doesn't really matter. We're not breaking that tab. So the top black wire, I could put that to the bottom. I could put the bottom one to the top. It doesn't matter. You see what I mean? And so what I'm going to do now is on this new plug receptacle, I'm going to take these screws out. Okay? I'm just going to undo them all the way. Just do it a little hard and it's going to come. It'll come. Oh, that went right down in the carpet. Almost couldn't see it. Okay. You can see I've got to put a little pressure on there. Okay? Now I'm just gonna twist that where it needed to be from before and fish my screw in there. That's got to be, oh yeah, okay. It's got to be over a little bit more. If this was around far further, and if you don't want to mess with taking it out and getting these out and twisting it and getting it back together, this is how you're going to do it. See, and I've got to. I'm having a hard time holding this and getting it over and everything. this little screwdriver happens to be kind of magnetic on the tip, but it's still, you just kind of hold your mouth just right, and eventually you'll get it. See? And if this is long enough, and if it doesn't look like the last person pinched together, if you can get something in there, needle nose, whatever, you can kind of pinch it just a hair, and see, because it's somebody else's, and because I don't want to undo the loop and redo the loop and make it longer and cut off some of the rubber, I'll just tighten it up right there, see? And I don't have to mess with it at all, right? Now I can do that with the top one. See how we know exactly where it goes. We didn't have to untwist the wire, do anything. If you want to take the screws out all the way and then fish the screws back in. And like I say, it's going to take you a few minutes to do it. Just be patient. There we go. Before I do it all the way, I'm going to see if I can kind of pinch those together. See, that one I could, just barely. That's going to help hold it on that screw. If the screw were ever to loosen up, let's say, or something like that. Okay. There. See? Now, just bend it back in about where it was before, okay? Like that. Okay, so far so good. Is there anything you've seen here that you don't think you can do? I didn't think so. Now before I put that in the wall, let's just talk about this electrical outlet here for a second. You know, it still works. I could use this as an emergency one. The prongs still work, but the prongs were loose, are well worn off, and it feels loose in there. I don't think I'm ever going to want to use this electrical outlet again, and so I'm going to throw it away. But before I do that, what can I save on here? I could save the mounting screw and that little plastic goodie, couldn't I? You can unscrew it, or you can just pull on it hard, because sometimes it's, you see, it's just that paper cardboard thing. And you can save those little washers or not. You don't have to. That just keeps it from falling out of your electrical outlet when you're getting ready to install it or something. These little screws, am I going to save those screws? Nah, probably not. But I'm going to save this ground screw. You'd be surprised at metal boxes. You can use this ground screw, or if you have an electrical outlet that's your short of the ground screw, let's say. I say I'm gonna keep it, but man, this thing is hard to come off of here. I've got my pliers. I guess if I really want to take this off bad enough, I got a pair of pliers. I got my crescent. Man, look at that. Oh, do I want to screw that bad? Yeah, maybe. Oh, look at that. I twisted this thing right off. If I really wanted that, I could grab that and take that off. Yeah, you know, if that came off easier, I would save that ground screw, because you never know when you're going to need a ground screw. Okay, and then I'm going to save these little tabs. I can use them for washers later on. And see, there's a little groove right there. I just bend that and it comes off. I can use this for a little washer sometime, couldn't I? For something that doesn't really matter where it's at. You would pull these off if you were to install this electrical outlet in a cut-in box, let's say. You would take these tabs off, these little wings, and then you would install this into your plastic box, which your plastic box is going to be on the outside of cut-in box, and it's got a groove right there, and then this shoves into the groove in the box. And then you can screw that down tight so your cover plate doesn't hit the wall. If you were to screw this on top of the plastic box, this sticks out of the wall further, and then your cover plate sometimes doesn't hit the wall nice. You see what I mean? I can just use these. I've used these. I can't tell you how many times I've used that little thing as a washer. A washer that you're never going to see to shim something out, or you just need an extra little washer for something. And I think, hey, I know. I'll use this. I just throw that in my nail bag. Okay. Now, kaboom, I'm throwing that away. I'm throwing away my ground screw on that. I'm throwing away all these other little screws. Okay? I don't need that anymore. I'm keeping those two mounting screws, and I'm keeping the washers. Okay? Recycle whenever you can. All right? That's what I do. All right. Let's put this back in the box now. Okay. This one's pretty easy because there's no wire nuts down in there and all that. If there were wire nuts down there, if I had to push this and wedge it back in, I might actually take these mounting screws out so that I can push this straight in there. But because I've got some room and this box is not flush with the sheetrock. You know what it almost looks like? It looks like they didn't cut the sheetrock out beyond the plastic box initially, and the box is pushed in there cattywampus. Here's the edge of the box here. It's indented into the wall by about, I don't know, 1/4 inch. But on this side, it's indented over 1/2 inch because they didn't cut this out. If I were to cut this out further beyond the plastic box, I could reach in there with some needle nose and pull on that and re-wedge it. I don't have to do that. But I'm just saying, if I needed more room to push this in, because I want these wires pushed in there nice and snug, so I know that when I push the screws in there into the hole, it's going to suck it up nice without it hitting anything. Okay? I don't want these screws, I don't want this to hit anything on the back. These screws could strip out of the plastic box or anything like that. So now I get this lined up, make sure it's good. Now I can put it in that. See, I don't have much threads to work with here. Wow, that one's almost tight. I might have to. I should probably take that bottom screw out and put a sheetrock drywall screw in there, coarse threaded 1.25 inch. I've got some. And see, this one, once I get the screw in, it's only going to go in a little short while. And it could strip out. I'm kind of surprised that this bottom one wasn't stripped out of the last one. The threads are barely reaching the box because, like I say, the box is pushed in there at an angle. It's already 5/8, 1/2 inch in there. These screws are 3/4 or so long, and so I'm going to use a regular drywall screw for the bottom one, so I know that it's going to get stuck in there nice. See, this screw isn't that long, is it? 3/4 inch, maybe a little bit more. Okay, so I'm gonna find one of those drywall screws, and I'll be right back. All right, I found. This is an 1.25 inch coarse threaded drywall screw. And did you know you can use those for your mounting screws for electrical outlet? Yeah, you can. Okay. I'm gonna put the regular mounting screw for the top. See, it's only about 3/8 inch long that's gonna fit in there, but it appears to be holding okay. This, I'm only gonna have 3/8 of it in. And before I get it all the way in there, I can see that this needs to be kind of pushed over that way a little. I want this to come straight out of the wall, nice and straight, so that when I put the cover plate back on, it's going to be flat to the wall. Okay. And I'm looking at the black bits, my felt tip pin that I had on there from before, and that looks pretty close to where it was. This thing is nice and straight, so when I put the cover plate on, it should be nice and flush on here. If it's not nice and flush all the way around, then you'll know that it's not pushed into the wall straight. See? Okay. This, it looks all nice. I can stand back, look at that, see if I need to, see if it needs to go over. If I need to, I can take that off, slide it over. The mounting brackets have little notches on them. I can move it over, but that looks pretty straight. Okay. There. Now, let's see if this fits in there straighter. You know, I can tell it's fitting in there better than this old one was really super loose. But I was hoping it was going to be better than that. I think these little apparatuses that's just the way they are. And it's kind of loose. It's kind of loose on that. And I would have thought they would have made those a little bit better. I'm not too happy with how those are. Because see, that's even at a slight angle. If I leave that there, chances are this is going to get wet and it's going to start dripping again. So I may have to use this forevermore. Something like this, paper towel, napkin, toilet paper, and just leave it pushed up in there. And that lines up perfectly. Okay. There you go. Now, am I all done with that? Not just yet. I've got to turn the breaker back on and make sure it works. Okay, I've got the breaker back on. You always want to check your breaker. Make sure the power is on before you call your project good. You don't want to walk away from this and make the assumption. And plus, when you turn your breaker back on, if your breaker trips, then you know maybe you did something wrong in your electrical junction box. Maybe one of your wires got loose if you're poking them into the back or something like that. See there? It's on. I know it's working. And I'm going to call that good. And speaking of breakers, if your breaker trips, then you're going to have to pull this apart and figure it out, try it again. And then when you get ready to turn your breaker back on, did you know on a tripped breaker, you have to turn your breaker off, then turn it back on all the way. And if you try to turn it back on all the way, and if it trips again, that tells you you're still something's going on with your work. Okay. Finally, once you get done, you turn your breaker on and the breaker does not trip. You know you probably got it, but then still walk back here, put your tester back in there and check it out before you call it good. Then do some cleanup. You're not done until everything gets put back away. Well, that's all I got for this time. But I'll be back with more videos. And hey, I know you're just a beginner, and if you want to watch more of my electrical videos or any videos I have, I got all kinds of stuff to save you money around the house on how-to projects and repairs. Just go to my main YouTube channel page, then click on playlists. Look for playlists and click on there. And there's over 50 different topics I have on my channel. Go scroll down to electrical and any other electrical things. You can peruse my videos, see what types of things I have. In case you're looking like, oh yeah, I want to replace a regular light switch and put a dimmer light switch in there, or a lit dimmer switch, or a three-way dimmer switch instead of regular dimmer switch, or a light fixture, whatever it is. look on those, and I might just have what you're looking for. And if I can do it, you can do it. Save your money. Check out my videos and start saving money around the house. See you next time.